Hi all, this is Skate, and this is the Blaze WZ135. Already in-game, this tank has received a very bad rep, because it's not a very good tank. And the reason, at the moment, it's not a very good tank, is because it doesn't shine in any class. Its mobility, it's okay, but it doesn't turn very well. The gun handling isn't the greatest. The reload is awful. And that is so much so that Wargaming have already recognised this. And I can confirm categorically and 100% in update 3.7, this tank is going to be getting a rate of fire buff, it's going to be getting a gun handling buff, and I quote, "will be making the gun more comfortable in general." Which is great news, but that puts me in a very difficult spot, because I want to do a review of this tank now, because I only did the preview of this, I want to do a review. However, as it stands, it's not, it sucks. It's just not a good tank. But in 3.7, I understand this is going to be considerably better. So what we'll do is I'll do a review as it stands now, and then we will do an updated review when we see what they do to it in 3.7. So I'm not going to say don't get this tank. If you're tempted to gold it after getting the WZ112, or the Glacial 112, yeah, it's maybe worth it, but at the moment, if they weren't confirmed as buffing it, it probably wouldn't be worth going for. But it is going to be getting that buff, so it probably is worth getting as a result. But realistically, if you do get it, just stick it in the back of your garage until it is buffed. My opinion probably seems quite harsh on the tank, so I am going to justify it. Before we explain all that though, I just want to show you my loadout on this. I run 14 AP, 5 APCR and 5 HE. On equipment, I run a gun lane drive, the rammer, and because this tank isn't the greatest, I have to use it as a sniper. So as a result, I run my camo net. I also run, on a consumables front, adrenaline, a multi-purpose repair kit and the repair kit, and then provisions. I run my provisions in regards to improved fuel, and the 2 provisions for crew skills. So, the tank itself. Every tank has some shining part of it which makes you think, yeah, everything else is worthwhile. Even the Stereomil, it has amazing gun depression, and the big gun has some monstrous alpha. The ISU 122S has fantastic DPM. I can't really pick out the shining part of this tank at the moment. So we're going to use Tank Compare to see what we can find. So, in Tank Compare, I've brought up the SU-152, the SU-12244, and the SU-122S. All of these guns all have the 122mm, and the first thing you'll notice, if I don't highlight everything, is the DPM on this is horrendous in comparison to the rest. And I mean, wow, that's some bad DPM. Here's a fun perspective. The Matilda Black Prince has more DPM, and that's tier 5. So does the tier 5 Death Toaster. The Angry O'Connor has 500 more DPM. The SU-85 and the SU-85I both have 200 more DPM than this thing does, 2 tiers higher. It's not looking good, is it? Aside from that awful rate of fire, meaning the awful DPM, everything else on these is the same. Penetration value, the alpha damage, and the shell velocity. And if you were thinking, oh, this must be like a laser beam, obviously to make up for that lack of DPM, quite the opposite, I'm afraid. The dispersion on this is the worst of all of these tanks. In fact, all of them have 0.364, except for this, it has 0.38. Also, the aiming time on all the rest of them is 1.84, yet this one is 2.31. Aside from that, the 2 things this has as a plus over the rest is it has a turret and it's got a higher top speed. The top speed on this is 50 kilometers per hour. The 12244 comes in at 48 and the other 2 at 43. It doesn't have a very good traverse speed though. It's almost like the grill. It'll go fast in a straight line, but that's pretty much it. The other thing, I said it has a turret. The turret only turns 40 degrees left and 40 degrees right. And if you look inside the turret right now, you will see that massive ammo rack. So if you're aiming to kill one of these things, back of the turret is where you need to aim for, and you pretty much are going to get an ammo rack. However, it's irrelevant because it only has 75mm of armor, which is just enough to block most HE being shot at it, except for a KV-2 and the SU-152, big troll cannons. So if you've got one of those tanks pointing at you, it might be just enough to block it. But it's open top, so if someone manages to get a HE in that open top, then, well, yeah, that ammo rack's more than likely going to go off. So, a tank with bad accuracy and bad DPM, how do you play it? Well, that's easy. You just don't get shot. Pretty much, you need to try and avoid any return fire and avoid anything pointing its gun at you. If it's got its gun pointing at you, run away. Unless it's got less than your average damage of 400 as well, you don't really want to be getting into a shot-for-shot situation. With a 12-second reload and 400 average, you are going to, struggle to play a one-on-one against a tank. Which is exactly why you'll see I play this tank very passive and I try to play it at range. That SP-1C went off the radar as my shot either hit or did not hit. We'll soon find out. Yes, it hit! It's just frustrating because it's got bad accuracy. But you have no choice but to play it at range because of the lack of armor and the lack of DPM. The only real advantage here is when I am camping, I don't drop my camo nets by moving the hull. I don't really need to move the hull that much because I've got, well, a semi-traversable turret. If this had a fully traversing turret, it would be considerably better. As you can see, mobility in a straight line though, I have absolutely no complaints on. It's very mobile. You can see we've hit that 50 very easily and we stick to the 50 very easily. The problem we've got with this tank when it comes to turning, it could really do with a traverse speed buff as well. Only because there's no point in having that great speed if you can only use it in a straight line. And I would love to see this tank performing well. I have no idea where that shot went. That was fully aimed. That should have hit. But anyway, it looks like a little sports car, this tank does. Take the turret off it and you've got a little TVR, basically. So being as it looks like a sports tank, you expect it to traverse much better than it does. But it doesn't. And we have to live with that. But I could probably live with it more if the gun wasn't so just frustrating. I mean, look at the reload. And it's even more frustrating, but because it's not the greatest in terms of accuracy, well, it pretty much means that you've got a massive long reload for, I've just missed the last 2 shots I've shot. Now, this shot, again, if you're loading, waiting for it to fully go in, what the hell was that? Yes, I pulled off a pretty cool shot on the spec earlier in the game. However, that doesn't make up for that shot there. It's just frustrating. I mean, I'm in close range proximity now. I'm not going to survive this. Unless you can finish a target very quickly, you can't get at close range. I'm going to get one more shot into this KV-3, and you can see he's aiming down. He knows he can pen me. No problem at all. Well, that was a bad game, in all fairness. But if I just landed those other 3 shots, that would have been another 1,200 plus damage. Which means the damage we did do, which was, when it loads, 1,900, could have easily been around 3,000. And this is the exact reason it's hard to do a review on this tank at the moment, because Wargaming have directly confirmed to me it will, without fail, be getting a buff in 3.7. So I can see the potential in this tank. It's very mobile in a straight line. You could drive past somebody and shotgun it. But at the moment, unless you are guaranteed to kill somebody, you can't do it. So it's just frustrating at the moment. Which is why I feel like a bit of a bully. It's not a good tank at the moment. I know it has the potential to be a good tank. I could see it being a very fun tank. But, oh yeah, the gun elevation isn't the greatest either. Sorry, just to add one more to it. There, you can see the gun elevation. That's it. That is the limit. But yeah, so there's another negative. Oh, there's the gun depression. Gun depression's okay, it's around 8. It's not... Well, somebody's asking me now, is it any good? So, at the moment, I can only say no. Like I said, I feel like a bit of a bully. Purely because I know it's going to change, yet I can't comment on what it's going to be like in 3.7, because at the moment, we are in 3.5. As it stands, as I'm saying here, there are so many reasons why it's not good. Any of the regular viewers will, without a doubt, notice this is more negative than my usual reviews. I like to try and be positive. I like a lot of the tanks in the game, and I always try and find positives on all of them. That being said, I am always honest about them at the same time. So I don't want to come out to you and say, hey, this is good for this reason and that reason, and then they all be overshadowed entirely by all the negatives of the tank. I mean, yeah, great. On a positive, it's got fantastic straight line speed. But if you can't fight with something, and you end up non-stop being taken apart as soon as anyone spots you, well, you're not going to care about the straight line speed. And instead, you're going to be going, Skate said there was positives. When, in fact, the positives are completely outweighed by the amount of negatives at the moment. I mean, even this shot coming up by here. I want to help him because I can see all the reds are pushing around this way now. Look, that shot should not miss. I was fully aimed and he went over the back of the turret. It's so frustrating. Especially when you consider I have a 12-second reload before I can get another shot off to finish this guy off. So we do manage to get that shot into him. However, the SP1C is on its way around, and you can see the Churchill there, and we know that there was a couple of other tanks there as well, because we saw them making their way around before they went off the radar. Now, if that SP1C, or Spic, or Spice Panzer, whatever you want to call it, decided to come close range to me, he would literally tear me apart. I'm lucky in this circumstance. Nobody knows what the Blaze is like at the moment, and as a result, he's not taking his chances coming up near me, because they don't know enough about the tank. This guy, on the other hand, has absolutely no idea, and just continues plodding along, which is probably the right thing to do because he is in a heavy. And you can see there's 4 of them in front of me now. But yeah, that SP1C, as soon as he'd come up against a couple of these tanks, this scenario would, in theory, be completely different. They'd know it's a bad tank with bad DPM, and you can afford to take one shot to wipe it out. Because I could land one shot to do 400-500 damage, say. But I got a 12-second reload, then I'm going to get wiped out while in the reload. You'll notice I'm firing APCR at the Churchill there. The reason being, I may not have directly needed it. I did screw up a shot earlier onto him. But yeah, don't shoot when you're on the move, by the way. But the reason I was firing APCR is because the reload is so bad, I needed to guarantee those shots because there were so many tanks in front of me. And if one of those shots had missed, that means that they would have got closer to my cover and more than likely did a considerable amount more damage to me than they did. So that's why I sadly decided to use the APCR, which means it did cost us. We made 50,000 profits though, which isn't actually too bad for a tier 7 tank. But again, if I'm honest, that just adds to my frustration. I didn't want to use the APCR, I probably didn't need to use the APCR, but I felt I had to guarantee the shots because of that rate of fire. Now Wargaming, as I mentioned, have said, I'm going to mention this numerous times in this video just to make sure that I do cover it. Obviously Wargaming have said this is definitely getting a buff in 3.7, and they've given the details of increased rate of fire. If anyone from Wargaming is watching this, I would beg you please to make sure you give it one hell of a rate of fire buff, please. Now, here's my personal opinion. Giving this an extra 1 shot a minute won't cut it. This thing needs an extra 2 shots a minute. Even then, with an extra 2 shots a minute, it's only going to have 2,800 DPM. That 2,800 DPM is less than all the other tanks with 122mm guns at tier 7. What this thing will then have instead is a semi-traversable turret. That would make up for that slightly lower DPM, which basically would make it fairer. So as you can see, it does need quite a buff to make it respectable and usable. I mean, it still has a higher aiming time and a higher gun dispersion than all the others. All the others have exactly the same gun dispersion and aiming time, but this is worse on both accounts. All of those things do not compensate and make up for by having a semi-traversable turret. What this thing really needs is an extra 2 shots a minute, the same dispersion and aiming time as the others, and even then it does still have less DPM, but that less DPM you could forgive by the fact it has that semi-traversable turret. Now, usually in my reviews and guides, I'll try and give details on how to angle tanks, how to play them, etc, etc. The only recommendations I can really make for this tank, at the moment anyway, are don't go close range. You need to be senior sniper in this. You can't go close range. You can't outfight anything. Like I said, half the tanks at tier 5 have better DPM than this thing. So yeah, the best recommendations quite simply are, obviously don't get shot is an obvious one, but it is quite simply, don't go close range. You can't go close range. When you go close range, you're going to get picked apart. Pull your shots off, as I am here, and get back into cover straight after each shot. Now, I don't like this playstyle. And the reason I don't like this playstyle is it's just frustrating. I can't be effective. If I'm seen, I'm not effective. If I'm close range, I'm not effective. And if I'm at long range, I'm sometimes effective because of that awful gun dispersion. You can't guarantee... I just bounced something. Oh, wow! Sorry, that wasn't very professional. Bounces, by the way, will come in few and far between. Yeah, I think the easiest way to sum up this tank is, in its current form, it's ridiculously team dependent. If you don't have a team to sit in front doing all the spotting and absorbing all the damage, you can't do very well in this tank. And that is why I would closely compare this tank to a Stir Meal. It doesn't look like it, or anything like that. It's quite simply because it can be very heavily dependent on its team. Stir Meal, every time it gets shot, it's going to get penetrated. But it's got a great gun with an awful rate of fire. In fact, let's just put it this way. I prefer the Stir Meal. So I'm desperately hoping when they buff this, they give it one hell of a buff. And then, I think this tank would actually be very good fun. I've got 3 kills here, so again, you could say that's not a bad game. I don't think this is a bad game. I actually think it's done well. But that's only because the vast majority of the time, I have stayed completely out of sight or at long range. You'll see the one time, or the times I came in close, I got ripped to bits. I mean, there's only one tank left, and that's an Indian Panzer. So everybody's doing the mad hunt to look for the Indian Panzer. We do find him in a second. I think he's actually playing hide and seek. He's not playing World of Tanks, he's playing hide and seek. I have no idea what the guy's doing down here. I was going to go capture the base here, only because, well, I'm low on health, as you can see, etc, etc. Then we find him on full health, hiding down in the riverbed. Like I said, he's playing hide and seek. So he's the last guy. I just think, what the hell, I might as well go and get one shot into him, get a bit more damage. There's an IS-6 right in front of him, so I think I'm probably quite safe behind the IS-6. No, he's ignoring that IS-6, turning to me, finish me off. I would have probably done the same thing, finish off the low health enemy, but it's just frustrating. Obviously, when your tank fully dies, it's just going to eat into your credit margin again. So we finished that game. We had 3 kills, and we did a total of... Bear with, just loading. It's so slow. 2,641 damage, and we got 37,000 profits. It's okay, but that's not the greatest. But I don't think that's because it's got bad credit efficiency. That is because you have to fire the APCR, as I mentioned at the start of that replay, and you can pretty much guarantee anything that hits you is going to pen. So, this game, obviously the last game, we do a little better. Not a mastery though, but we do a little better than we have done in the last few games. And that's because by this point I decided I just can't get shot. I need to avoid getting shot at all costs. I need to avoid being any form of priority. I need to be a ghost. We need to play this thing like a ninja. So I'm not going anywhere near the front of the fight. I am going to go sit up by here, and hopefully something will pop around the corner, which means I can put a shot into it. Yeah. We are just going to hang out here a while, along with the T-34. And that T-34 pops up with a comment, "Nice tank, noob." Well, to you, sir, I say, no it isn't. But now we're going to have some targets to shoot at. We're going to get one into the side of the ass, and we're going to back right the way up. I can't do anything for 12 seconds in total, so I'm going to back it all the way up, wait for my reload, and then I'm going to come out in wait. I'm not relocating my tank to try and find something else, because as soon as I relocate, I give up all my good cover, and I'm quite happy that shot went in. But yeah, if I relocate just to get a shot in sooner, I'm putting myself in a more dangerous situation. And this tank, I just can't put it in a dangerous situation. And I genuinely think the only reason I have done well in this game, or I do well in this game, is because I'm not getting shot at. I do manage to get one into the KV-1S and set him on fire. He's out ready and waiting though. Obviously he's got the little gun, and I'm going to reload, put my adrenaline on to try and get a shot in. I just bounced another one as well. Sweet! The only place you're going to bounce off this is the gun mantlet, which is very small. So if somebody does get you there, you are pretty lucky. Also, very important, be very aware of your surroundings in this. Because you can guarantee whatever's going to hit you, in theory, should be penning. Like that KV-1S, if I didn't notice him pop out, he could have easily shot the side of my turret. And the other frustrating thing about this tank, it just does not feel exciting. The gameplay doesn't feel exciting. You feel like you're waiting forever just to do a little bit of damage, and then back into cover again like this. It's just not exciting gameplay, and I imagine it's probably not overly exciting to watch as well, because, well, you're just watching my gun reload most of the time. So although I can't do a lot of damage to him because of how slow my reload is, I can take his track off with my shot, which makes him stay still, which means I can get some assistance damage. But if I'm going to reload... Hey, I did manage to kill him in time. So I've got one kill, and I've pointed out so far that this is a good game for this tank. And right now it doesn't feel like I've done a lot of damage, which is strange, because I know I've done good damage in this, only because I've seen the end result. Other than that, it didn't look or feel like I did good damage. But we did do pretty good, or okay, above average, there we'll go with that wording, which I think is probably good for this tank. We did 3,200 damage, and we netted ourselves 70,000 profits. That's actually pretty good on the profit front there. And again, the only reason I accomplished that is because I wasn't getting shot at. If I was getting shot at or prioritized, or people knew more about the tank, I would have been wiped out or killed much sooner. And quite simply, skill doesn't come into it. You could be a 40% player or a 60% player. If your gun physically will not reload in time, there is not a lot you can do about it. Which is why I really look forward to the buff on this tank, and I hope it's a really good buff. I apologise to everybody for the ridiculously negative review here. It's probably the most negative one I have done. So I apologise for that, but I'm just trying to be brutally honest here. Either way, I hope you have enjoyed watching. As soon as I know more about the tank, and as soon as I know what sorts of buffs it'll be getting, I will make sure I prompt and push up a video as quick as I can to obviously share that with everybody. Again, thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye bye.